to the entertaining Talkin' Sports.
What is going on, Hoops fans? Back at it with another New York Knicks videos. Yes, I know I traditionally do a lot of Giants stuff on here. I'm going to try to do more Knicks videos, being that I have a little bit more time during the dead time of the NFL football season. Of course, the draft is going to pick up very shortly, and I'm going to have a lot more Giants content up on the page. But the New York Knicks are playing some very good basketball, and I wanted to talk about it in this video and whether or not I think it's sustainable and if the New York Knicks potentially could make the NBA playoffs this year. Each of the last 6 seasons, the New York Knicks have had a winning percentage of under 400. Okay? They've probably had one of the worst records in all of basketball, if not the worst, during that 6-year span. And the Knicks have not been good since that, 54-win season with Carmelo Anthony. Other than that, we've been abysmal. We've been a disgrace. Of course, the Knicks made a major change this year. They brought in a new coach in Tom Thibedeau. And the Knicks are surprising a lot of people right now, myself included. I love calling the live streams, and I get excited every day getting ready to call them. Because when the Knicks are good, they're fun and they're exciting. And I don't want anybody to get carried away. I don't want anybody to think that I'm saying that the Knicks are good yet. They got to earn that. And I still think they're a young team. I still think they're developing. And I still view them kind of the way I viewed the New York Giants this year. A young team that's rebuilding, that has to learn how to grow and win basketball games. But under Thibedeau, yeah, you could clearly see it. This team has an identity, and the identity is clearly defense. And in this video, I'll talk about, some factors that may point to that maybe the Knicks won't be able to quite keep up this type of efficiency on the defensive end, but is it possible that they could pick up some of the slack on the offensive end to make up for it? I'm also going to dive into the schedule that the Knicks have played up to this point in the season, and when you really look at it, it is encouraging. Off of 16 games in a 72-game schedule, we got to remember that this year, that maybe they can, as the schedule lessens up a bit, actually go on a bit of a run, maybe surprise us, and possibly make the playoffs. Of course, we're not close to being able to compete for an NBA championship, but what this year is about is these young players progressing, and we're starting to see that with R.J. Barrett. In addition to that, Julius Randle has been out of this world. I'm going to jump into some of his stats as well. He's playing like an all-star off a disappointing campaign last year in which he shot 28% from 3. He averaged 19 points and was definitely a letdown for the New York Knicks, along with a number of other players. And the defense, they've had a number of very good, underrated free agent acquisitions. Nerlens Noel is terrific off the bench in terms of defense. Alec Burks, he's only played now 4 games with the Knicks, but he's a nice veteran piece. Austin Rivers, they've brought in a good collection of both veterans and younger players, and I do think the Knicks have a good blend of talent on this team. The question is it sustainable? Obviously, you worry about the minutes. We're going to jump more into that, but first, we're going to start with the schedule that the Knicks have played so far this year. And of course, like I said, the Knicks have played 16 games. When you look at the opponents they've played the Philadelphia 76ers, the Pacers 2 times, the Bucks, the Cleveland Cavaliers 2 times, the Utah Jazz, the Denver Nuggets, the OKC Thunder, the Golden State Warriors, the Brooklyn Nets, the Toronto Raptors, Charlotte, Boston, Orlando, and Atlanta. And in those 229 combined games, their opponents' combined record is 123 and 106, so over 500. And in the 16 games, only 4 of those games was the team under 500. So you look at that and you say to yourself, well, the schedule should start to ease up, yet the Knicks are still 8-8. So they're off to a good start when you really do factor in their schedule. Now, of course, they still have 3 games left on this road trip. They play the Kings tonight, a team that I think they should beat, 5-10. You don't have the traditional home court advantage. Of course, it's a back-to-back. We'll see how they respond. And then they got some challenging games after that, including Portland. And I forgot the other team. But they play 2 more games on the West Coast. Then they come back home. And we'll see how they finish out this trip. But regardless, they're definitely trending in the right direction. And over the last 5 games, R.J. Barrett has really started to show maturation. And is it sustainable? Will he keep it up? We're going to have to wait and see. He went through a dry spell there for about 5 games during that 5-game losing streak for the New York Knicks, but he has since rebounded and put forth his best 5-game display since he's been in the NBA. And of course, Tom Thibedeau has had, tremendous success with shooting guards in the past. You look at a guy like Jimmy Butler, made him an all-star there with the Chicago Bulls. Now he's one of the best players in the NBA, and you've seen the effect he's had on Julius Randle. But over the last 5 games, and really for the year in terms of free throw percentage, you've seen R.J. Barrett get better in that aspect. That's something that we knew he needed to improve this year that we wanted to see. Well, so far through 16 games, he's improved it drastically. Last year, he shot 61% from the charity stripe, and he struggled in college as well. I think he shot in the mid-60s. This year, he's up to 75%. That is a huge jump, 14%. And over the last 5 contests, it's even better. He's 21 of 25, which is 84%. In his last 5 games, he's also averaging over 20 points a game, 51% from the field. He's been much more efficient. His field goal percentage for the year is still a lot lower than you'd like it. He's just over 40. I think he's about almost 41%. But he's starting to trend in the right direction because of these last 5 games. And you're starting to see R.J. Barrett get some confidence. You see him evolving as a basketball player, and you got to love what you see. Over the course of his career, in 67 career contests leading up until these last 5 games, he only had 17 career 20-point games. Over the last 5 games since then, he's had 4. So it's been a great 5-game spurt for R.J. Barrett. We need to see him continue to grow and build in this season because, to me, that is the most important factor for this season for the New York Knicks. The young players, mainly R.J. Barrett, showing you that he could potentially morph into a superstar. Mitch Robinson, his defense has been very underrated. Last night he was terrific. And the one thing I want to point out about Mitch is he has stayed out of foul trouble. He's done a better job in that aspect this year. That was the major knock on him by Knicks fans. We don't expect him to go out there and average 20 points a game. We want to see him give hustle minutes, block some shots, grab some boards, and that's exactly what he's done. I think he's been much better there defensively this year as an all-around defender. I mentioned Nerlens Noel, and they're getting great defensive effort from this basketball team. The other player that's really stepped up his game and I think is headed to the NBA All-Star game if the Knicks could remain around 500 is Julius Randle. What they've gotten out of him in terms of being a distributor of the basketball, his career high was, I think, about 3 assists a game when I looked at the stats for his career. So far over the first 16 contests, he is averaging over 6 assists a game. He's doubled his career high so far. His 3-point percentage is way up from last year. He shot 28% last year with the Knicks in his first year. He's up to 36%. His free throw percentage is up. His field goal percentage is up. He's averaging 22, 11, and 6, and Julius Randle has been great for the New York Knicks. Now, the thing you worry about specifically with those two players is it sustainable? Because over the first 16 games, they've both averaged 37.1 minutes a game, which ranks tied for second in the entire league. And we all know that Tom Thibedeau has a reputation for running his players into the ground. Of course, the New York Knicks operated with an 8-man rotation there for a bit because they had a lot of injuries. Neil Akina's still out. Obi Toppin's still easing his way back in. We just got Alec Burks back. So maybe when this roster fills in and he feels confident having a steady 10-man rotation, maybe those minutes diminish down to 34, 35 minutes, which is where you want it around for both of these players. But so far, yeah, that's a little bit of a worry for Knicks fans, and I understand it. I will point out that this year it's a 72-game schedule as opposed to 82, so maybe playing these players that many minutes won't have that much of an effect as it would in a normal regular season. The defense, I really wanted to talk about that. Right now, the New York Knicks rank first in 3 major statistical categories. Their opponents are only averaging 102.8 points a game, which is the best in all of basketball. The next closest, I think, is 105.2. They also have the best defense in terms of field goal percentage against and 3-point percentage against. One thing I want to talk about with the 3-point percentage that I think is a fair thing to bring up, I saw it on KnicksBlog.com, where it may be a little bit fluky. Per NBA.com tracking, the Knicks are around league average when it comes to the percentage of 3-point attempts in which they have a defender within 4 feet of the shooter. Meaning, they're right around 15 in the league in terms of having a guy within 4 feet of the shooter. I think their opponents also are attempting the most threes in basketball. But they give up the 4th highest percentage of wide open threes, defined as a defender being 6 feet away or further from the shooter. Yet, they lead the league in opponents' 3-point percentage against at 30.7. So you could certainly argue based on those statistics, they rank 27th in the league in terms of giving up wide open threes, yet they have the best 3-point percentage against. Yeah, it does seem a little bit fluky and unsustainable that the Knicks could keep up this pace in terms of 3-point percentage against at 30.7. However, maybe they could combat that by sinking more threes. They've started to get a little bit better in that aspect as a team this year. Last year, they shot 33.7. This year, so far, they're shooting 34.9. And maybe with the addition of some of these veterans coming back, between Reggie Bullock, between Austin Rivers, Emmanuel Quickly, maybe the Knicks will be able to get that number up a bit more to try to combat, what's inevitable. I think the opponent's three-point percentage is going to, tick up to the 33, 34% range more than likely based on the statistics that they showed. So we'll have to wait and see how the Knicks do that. Of course, the Knicks don't attempt a ton of three-pointers, but regardless, the Knicks are headed down the right direction. And are they a shoo-in for the playoffs? Absolutely not. But it's nice to even be talking about it nearly a quarter of the way into the season, because to me, that at a bare minimum shows all I want to see out of this season, which is growth. And the most important player on this team is R.J. Barrett, and you are seeing that growth a ton over these last 5 games. We'll see if the Knicks can keep it up tonight against the Sacramento Kings. I'm looking forward to calling it. Hopefully the New York Knicks get to over 500 as they go for their 4th straight. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.